But you need to understand, even after spoiling your relationship with your spouse, you will never be a good enough child for your narcissistic parent. So don't ruin your relationship with your spouse. You have to spend the rest of your life with your spouse, with your family. So don't ruin your relationship and dynamic with your spouse because of your narcissistic parents. Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing good and taking good care of themselves. So today I'm going to talk about different ways narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse. And before I get going, I would request you all to like, share, subscribe the channel, hit the notification bell so you guys are updated whenever we put out a new content. So narcissistic parents really don't care about your happiness. They don't want you to be happy in your personal space. They don't want you to be happy with your family, your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. And this is because they brought you in this world to solely serve them. If you are in relationship, if you are having a family of your own, you might be distracted, you might not focus on them. Yeah, your priorities might change with time, and that's a red flag. They don't want you to prioritize your family, your lover, your partner, your wife, your husband. They don't want that. They want to be your number one priority till the time they are alive. And once they are dead and gone, who cares? You can go to hell. They just don't care about your future. All what they're concerned about is harvesting supply. So these narcissistic parents hate when they see a good chemistry between you and your spouse. They hate it, and they see it as a red flag, and then they get on a mission to spoil your relationship. They get on a mission to sabotage your relationship with your spouse. And they do a lot of things. The first thing that they do to sabotage your relationship with your spouse is to plant seeds of doubt. They criticize your spouse's character, intention, or abilities, subtly making you question their loyalty, love, or competence, creating tension and mistrust in the relationship. So these narcissistic parents are going to keep criticizing your spouse's character, intention, ability. Oh no, 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 she's not doing it right. You've got no idea. She doesn't know our family tradition. She doesn't know this, she doesn't know that. He doesn't know this, he doesn't know that. And this is basically to make you question their loyalty. Yeah, this is basically to sow the seeds of doubt. Yeah, so that you start doubting your spouse, you stop believing and trusting your spouse. And that's how these narcissistic parents are able to create tension and mistrust in the relationship. Yeah, and with time, the quality of your relationship deteriorates. It just worsens with time. Yeah, because you're constantly gaslit, and you start doubting, and you start fighting with your spouse. You start questioning your spouse's intention. You start getting into baseless fights with your spouse. And this is basically to spoil your relationship with your spouse, so that you again go back to your narcissistic parent. You are not focused on your spouse, on your family, and you are just focused on your narcissistic parent. You just believe that my mother is my only well-wisher, my father is my only well-wisher, and that's it. Because my wife is a little bitchy, my wife is not good, my wife is the troublemaker, my husband is the troublemaker, my father was right, my husband is the big problem, and not my father. So a lot of confusion is there, a lot of doubt. And because of this, I have seen people taking divorce, people ending the relationship, and the credit goes to these narcissistic in-laws, narcissistic parents. Yeah, because they breed you for return. They breed you so that you serve them, and that's it. Yeah, your loyalty lies with them. Yeah, and you're not there for anybody else. Okay, you can get married, okay, you can start a family, but in the end, you have to prioritize them and not your child, not your spouse. The other way how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse is with triangulation. So they pit you and your spouse against each other by spreading lies, exaggerating stories, or playing the victim to create conflict, forcing you to take sides and, driving a wedge between you. So I mean, I have, first-hand experience. I mean, with my ex, with my current relationship. I mean, my in-laws, were and are narcissistic individuals. And, they used to tell me a version of story, and they used to narrate something different, in front of my husband. And that's how, they used to pit, us against each other. Yeah, they used to exaggerate stories, they used to tell lies. I mean, I have experienced this. I mean, my mother-in-law used to tell me that, never trust, your husband, he's horrible, he never listens to me, he's a careless guy, this and that. And there was a time when I started believing her, and I was like, maybe he is careless, she might be right. I mean, she's the mother after all, she knows him better. And then I realized, that this was basically to create friction between me and my husband. And then she used to narrate a different story, in front of my husband. She used to tell him that she's very careless, she hardly cares about you, she hardly cares about us. Yeah, so they, triangulate things, they, pit you against your spouse, and that's how they create friction. And with time, it becomes bitter. Yeah, with time, nothing good happens. Yeah, I mean, your relationship goes down the drain. Yeah, with all these lies and manipulation and gaslighting. So yes, narcissistic parents are big time into triangulation. They will pit you and your spouse against each other by spreading lies, exaggerating stories, playing victim, and all of it is basically to create conflict and forcing you to take sides. I mean, their side, of course. So in one of the instances, my mother-in-law used to tell my ex-husband that I was very abusive, I was verbally very abusive towards her, and I was not respecting her, and I was very harsh and rude with her, and because of that she was emotionally hurt. I mean, my mother-in-law, covert narcissistic mother-in-law, was hurt. And my husband, my ex, felt that I was genuinely rude, I was very abusive towards her, and I was mistreating an old woman, a helpless old woman who's very lonely, who has no one to turn to. So he started seeing me as a villain. And I mean, with time, of course, that relationship end. But this is how things are in narcissistic families. When you have narcissistic parents, they will never let you and your spouse have a good relationship. They will triangulate things, they will project your spouse as the predator, they will project your spouse as the perpetrator and them as the innocent victim. And now you have to save your parents, you have to save your parent from your spouse, because your spouse is the villain, your spouse is the perpetrator. Yeah, so that's how they create conflict. And trust me, in majority of the cases, where relationships end, the reason is narcissistic parents, narcissistic in-laws. The other way how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse is by overstepping boundaries. So narcissistic parents often interfere in your marriage by offering unsolicited advice, criticizing your spouse, or inserting themselves into private matters, making it hard to establish healthy boundaries. So these narcissistic parents are going to keep barging in, they are going to keep overstepping boundaries. They will decide how you need to behave, and what you need to do when. They will decide when you need to have children, they will decide how you need to treat your spouse, they will decide where you need to spend your money. They will keep giving you unsolicited advice that no, you should not buy this for her, you should not buy this for him. Yeah, I mean, I have first-hand experience, I have seen it with other individuals as well, where these narcissistic in-laws, narcissistic parents are telling, their children that you shouldn't spend money on her, you shouldn't get her this, you shouldn't get her that, you're spoiling her, save money, for yourself, save money for us, why are you spending money on her? So, they are real, cheapskates, when it comes to, doing things for other family members. But when it comes to them, they want every good thing reserved for them. But for the others, they behave very cheap, they behave very stingy, and, miser. So these narcissistic parents, are big time into overstepping boundaries. They will never give you space, they will never give you a space to, you know uh, grow into each other. I mean, you and your spouse, they will not give you space. They'll keep barging in, they'll keep on giving you, they'll keep on offering, unsolicited advice, even though you don't ask them, even though, you have never, shared any of, such problem. But they will, come and give you that you should do this, they will come and tell you you should do this and do that and do this way. And, this really makes it hard to establish healthy boundaries. And trust me, nobody, in the right state of mind will tolerate this. Yeah, someone, invading their personal space, someone, running over their boundaries. Yeah, so with time, a kind of a distance, gets created between you and your spouse. Yeah, because your parents are constantly poking their nose, your parents are constantly telling you what to do, what not to do, your parents are constantly telling you how you need to do things, and, what you need to do with your spouse, and what your spouse needs to do, and how she needs to dress, how he needs to dress. So a lot of interference really, spoils the relationship. The other way how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse is by, demanding loyalty and attention. They make you feel guilty for prioritizing your spouse, accusing you of abandoning them or being ungrateful, which strains your marriage by forcing you to divide your time and energy unfairly. So, they are going to guilt trip you, and they are going to tell you, I know, since the time you're married, you've forgotten your parents, you've forgotten your old parents, you've forgotten your mother, you've forgotten your father. Yeah, so they don't want you to prioritize your wife, your husband, your children. They want you to neglect them, just throw them away. They want you to not do anything for them and just keep doing things for them. Yeah, they will make you feel guilty. And, with time, you will start ignoring your child, your spouse, and you will start, spending more time with them. You will, redirect all that focus and energy and attention onto your narcissistic parents. Yeah, because they will keep on guilt tripping you and telling you all those sob stories. You have got no idea how much I suffered, and look, you got married and now you've forgotten your old parent, you're just happy and busy in your own life. How selfish you are. You have got no idea what we sacrificed and what we did, and all that, BS, word salad and shitty stories. Yeah, so they are going to, demand loyalty and attention, and all of this, hurts your personal relationship with your spouse. Yeah, because you are torn between the two. You have to prove your loyalty towards your parent, and, you, in a way, ruin your relationship with your spouse. But you need to understand, even after spoiling your relationship with your spouse, you will never be a good enough child for your narcissistic parent. So don't ruin your relationship with your spouse. You have to spend the rest of your life with your spouse, with your, family. So, don't ruin your relationship and dynamic with your spouse because of your narcissistic parents. Because no matter what you do, no matter what you sacrifice, no matter, what extent you go to prove your loyalty, still, you know they will not hesitate in telling you that you're not good enough. Yeah, so stop proving your loyalty. Your loyalty, needs to be there, towards your spouse, towards your wife, towards your husband, and towards your children, not towards your parent. The other way how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse is by, creating competition for affection. So they manipulate, situations to make you feel like you have to choose between them and your spouse, often portraying themselves as the victim to ensure they remain your top priority. So, it will all be about them or your spouse. It will be like a competition. Oh, you're busy. I know. Okay, it's okay. We are old people. You hardly care about us. So they are going to taunt you, they are going to guilt trip you, and it will all be, like a competition for you. Yeah, I mean, competition for affection. Yeah, I mean, if you want their love and affection, you will have to betray your spouse. If you want their love, affection, and attention, you will have to ignore your spouse. Yeah, and you will have to prioritize your narcissistic parent. And they do this by constantly projecting themselves as the victim, the martyr, the suffering hero. And that's how they position themselves as your top priority, and you betraying your family, your wife, your husband, your kids, and you are just prioritizing them because they have a interesting story to narrate. They have good ways of projecting themselves as the victim. They have a compelling story, and they had been pressing all your trigger buttons since a long time, because they are the ones who installed it in the first place. So these narcissistic parents are big time into creating their love and affection as a prize in a competition, and the competition is to prioritize them, and only then you will get their love and affection. Otherwise you'll be neglected, otherwise you will just be guilt tripped, otherwise you will just be shamed and ignored, and silent treatment, and all of those passive aggressive things will be thrown at you. And the last way how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse is by spreading rumors or lies. They may spread false stories about your spouse, to friends, family, or even you, attempting to isolate you from your partner and turn others against your relationship. So they are going to cook up some story, and they are going to tell you, well, you have got no idea, your wife is a characterless woman, your wife is not loyal towards you. I overheard her speaking to some man over the phone, and this and that. They'll come up with all sorts of stories. They are going to tell you, they are going to create friction between you and your spouse. They are going to tell other relatives also, yeah, so that they are also against your relationship. Yeah, and that's how they isolate you from your partner. Yeah, they sabotage your relationship with your spouse. And with time, the rift or the crack that is caused with all these lies and rumor and doubt and gaslighting, it deepens, and it scars the relationship, and eventually relationships end. Yeah, and the credit goes to these narcissistic in-laws and narcissistic parents. So these narcissistic parents, narcissistic in-laws don't want their children to be happy. They want their children to just use their spouse as a money making machine, as an incubator, as a toy to fulfill their lust and desire, and as an incubator to fertilize and bring the offspring. And a hospice, a maid, unpaid laborer, that's it. They want their children to see their spouse in these ways. They don't want their children to have a healthy relationship with their spouse. Yeah, they want to be their topmost priority. They want to be their children's top priority. Yeah, be the only priority in their children's life. Yeah, that is to serve my narcissistic parent, to serve my narcissistic mother or narcissistic father. And that's how they start damaging their children's personal life, professional life, their marital life. Everything goes for a flying F. Yeah. So yes, these were some of the ways how these narcissistic parents sabotage your relationship with your spouse. In case if you would like to add in something, you can always comment below. Till then, take care of yourself. Lots of love and blessings to all of you. And prioritize yourself. First, prioritize yourself. Second, prioritize your spouse and your children. You just don't need to prioritize your narcissistic parents. Please prioritize yourself.